Hey, what is up guys? GuitarRock here, welcome back to another Brown Dust 2 video. Alright, I'm a bit late for this, but hopefully just want to give you guys collectively my thoughts regarding Helena. Alright, so because her banner is right now available for every single player, and this is going to be the B rank idol Helena, and probably you have seen conflicting opinions regarding Helena, right? Some people say to pull for her. Some people say maybe not pull for her as much. Some people say maybe wait for a little bit and see how it goes, things like that. So maybe I'll give you guys my honest thoughts, my honest opinion as someone that's been playing since day one. Because I'm a day one player, I just want you guys to know. So that means I'm going to have a very different perspective when it comes to this. Regarding this B rank idol Helena, right? So how strong she is. As you can see, I already have her at +3. But I rarely use her, to be honest, and not because she's bad, but we're gonna talk a little bit more about the context of meta overall right now in Brown Dust 2. Okay, so let's just we're gonna zoom back out a little bit. All right, we're gonna go back all the way to before this, all the way in day one. All right, so when the game first launched, I started playing the game. Everybody starts playing the game. You guys maybe just started recently as well. So if you just first started playing the game, all right, you're gonna get a couple of free characters. Justia is going to be one of it. Justia is the main, main character you get from chapter 1. If you finish chapter 1 story, you're gonna get one copy of the White Reaper Justia, I believe. You also will be able to reroll for her. All right, so easy, unlimited reroll. You can reroll for Justia. Now she is a physical character, very distinct character overall, and then you will be able to obtain Cry easily. One of the best PvE carry for a lot of players. So Cry is a very strong because of his tile range, right? He has one costume, this particular one that can hit in a cross tile. Very good in that sense. Alright, and then you get Shirazad from chapter 2, I believe. And then you get not this particular one, but you get this version. No, not this version. This version. Alright, so you get the this particular one, the Lapis Witch version, and then you also get Grey from chapter 3. So those are the first few characters that everybody starts off with. So ideally, early on, you want to build a physical team. Alright, for a lot of players, if you start out the game, building a physical team makes a lot of sense. Except for Shirazad, which is magical. Justia and Grey pretty much is a physical elemental character, right? I believe you get this character, and then you can add in Cry, you can add in like Wiggle and stuff. Very strong 3-star character right here. So moving forward, in the meta back then, right, there was also magical team. Alright, so back then the only option between buffers, alright, in terms of somebody that you can buff, is either going to be Arenes, which everybody gets for free. Arenes is going to be, as you can see, increased attack by 70%. That's a lot of increased attack, alright? Increased crit rate by 30%. So attack and 70%, crit rate by 30%. However, Arenes only works for a physical team. So if you're on magical team, there's not much option back then. There was Samai, which is a 4-star, which some players have access to, some players do not, depending on if you have her or not. She doesn't give crit rate, however. So you can see this particular schoolgirl Samai, increased attack by 50% and magic attack by 50%. So this one is a little bit more hybrid, right? And then she heals, it's like whatever. But the increase of attack and magic attack 50%, kind of good for hybrid team, but it doesn't specialize in a magic team. And then that was when B rank idol Helena came out, right? So she was the first character that somehow extremely beneficial to a lot of magic team. She's also very good back then, right? SP cost is 2, and then increased magic attack by 55%. You can see also increase crit rate as well. So she can increase magic attack, she also heals, and she also increase crit rate, which is very useful for a lot of if you want to run like Celia and such, right? Celia is a very unique character. If you have Celia and Shirazad, that was the best 2 characters that you can run, and then you can probably add in like Maria or something, which is also this girl right here, right? She's a very good character, decent range. All right, she has a decent tile range. She's been used a lot in PvP back then. So those are the meta back then, right? With these few characters, especially if you have Celia early on. Where's my Celia? Okay, this girl early on. If you have this particular costume, which is this one, right? She does so little damage that you need a buffer for sure, because her multiplier is very low. She's more of a big AoE, but low damage kind of character. So having a Helena definitely helps her a lot, like a big help to make sure that she's able to do more than she should, right? So that was the meta back then, right? When you start early on, it was either physical or magical team. However, back then, it was just mostly story, campaign, etc. And then Angelica starts appearing. So this is going to be the first distinction into the meta that where physical or magical doesn't matter. Alright, so Angelica was the first character that has that. She is a character that pretty much scales off crit damage. Alright, so what do I mean by that? Look at this. So this was the first costume that appears. So you can see decrease incoming damage by 75%, attacks 3 times and each attack deals magic damage based off 21% of the target's max HP. So she doesn't need, even though she's a magic damage dealer, she doesn't need a magic damage or magic attack buff because her scaling is based upon the target's max HP. So she scales off crit damage actually. So you gotta build her with a lot of crit and crit damage. So she has this costume right here that does this. She also has this costume that does this, right? Deals magic damage based off 53% of the target's max HP. That is a lot. She's very good for bosses because of that. And she was the meta back then, alright? Angelica was still the meta back then. She still is today, by the way, against bosses. If you are fighting against any bosses, Angelica would be probably the first character that you want to bring in, right? And then this one as well, decrease incoming damage and also deals magic damage based off 5% of the target's max HP. And then there's a DOT upon 14% of the max HP for every 8 turns. So again, Angelica was the first character that sort of like switches the meta a little bit. Now you don't have to rely on physical team or you don't have to rely on magical team. That was when, after Angelica came out, Red Riding Hood Rao was a thing, and I'm still using her until today. So why is Red Riding Hood Rao a thing? Because she's a buffer that fits in both teams, alright? It doesn't matter if you're physical or magical, she makes a lot more sense. The reason why is because she straight up just increased crit rate by 50%. There's no increased attack, there's no increased magic attack, but also she gives energy guard, equals to 70% of max HP, that takes damage for 4 turns. Now Red Riding Hood Rao, I believe, is the meta for bosses, alright? So this was like about 4 to 5 months ago, alright? Keep in mind. Or maybe 2 to 3 months ago now. And then they started introducing bosses, right? This is where you, instead of tackling campaign and stuff, the meta is now revolved around bosses. And what bosses am I talking about? Like right now you can see every single stage, every single event will have the Fiend Hunter. Alright, so the Fiend Hunter boss, this is gonna occur. Yeah, so it's right here, as you can see. So the current one is Eon or EON, right? So the hunting period is going to be something that is pretty much the meta, right? The meta is always going to be revolved around this boss. And the meta has pretty much switched since then, alright? Instead of physical team or magic team, right? Now you no longer need to specialize in those because element makes more sense. So the meta becomes mono element. So that was when everything switched, right? For example, this particular boss, Eon, is a light type boss, right? You can see, right? In the previous one, it was always about the element, alright? It's always about if the boss is a fire type, you want to use like a water type ally to basically try to have the elemental advantage, right? So Diana appeared after that, alright? She pretty much like changed the meta entirely. She makes the other buffers less relevant, not because the other buffers are bad, not because like physical team is bad or magical team is bad, because of how the bosses plays an important role in the element, and where Diana, which everybody gets for free by the way, if you play up to chapter 10, you will be able to get this particular version of Diana for free, right? So she is a very unique character where she basically gives you an aura effect that increases 140% property damage, alright, and 20% crit rate whenever you just line up your characters in the tile. So she basically changes the need to have a physical team or a magical team in that sense, because now you just need to have property damage. That means you are always going to be able to do more damage as long as you have the elemental advantage. Instead of having physical or magical teams, it's all about having the right property element. And I would say because of that, it makes Helena less of a must pull than before, just because most people are going to have you want to use multiple same element against the boss. For example, right now in the current Eon boss, right, the one that's light type, you want to use dark property element to basically get rid of the character, right? The enemy. Now you can see right here, this is an example of a chart. you always want to have the elemental advantage because Diana gives a lot of damage boost if you have the elemental advantage. Knowing that the boss is a certain type is always going to give you, it makes more sense to use Diana overall compared to any other buffer. Before the Fiend Hunter boss, the campaign pretty much relies on you having strong characters, right? It pretty much relies on you having physical team or magical team because you can never determine what elements of enemies you're fighting in campaign, right? It makes a lot of sense because you're fighting multiple different enemies, they could all be a different element altogether. So that wasn't a thing back then. But now that we have a boss, always, Fiend Hunter boss is something that we collectively have every single season, alright, like I just showed you guys. While Helena, I don't think Helena is bad, but you can see where I'm going with this. For a lot of players, you ideally want to have the correct element instead of having the physical or magical team. It makes more sense for you to have, for example, if you're fighting a light boss, right? You probably are going to have, let's say, a Celia and also, what's the name? Eclipse. These are both dark type. And they are both going to be very good against this boss. They also both happen to be magic user. The developers aren't stupid. They're smart. They put Helena right now because these two characters happen to be a magic user, right? So it's always going to be something that you have to think. So if you are pulling them for the current boss, sure, I see that makes sense, right? It always, the banner is always positioned in a way that the banner characters are going to be strong against that particular boss. But it's just more of, after this boss ends, are you still going to be using B rank idol Helena afterwards? There's something to think about, right? Because I personally have stopped using her. I might consider using her in this boss, but other than that, I haven't really used her for a while, right? Not even in PvP. Let me show you guys my PvP team. Eclipse is really strong, right? And there's a lot of PvP starter and stuff. But let me show you guys, Eclipse at +5 is going to be more than enough in most case, in most scenario, to one-shot a lot of opponents in PvP. Alright, let's show you guys an example. In Diamond 2 rank, you can see, okay, I think this is a new player because he's using, you can see my Eclipse is definitely more than enough. Alright, there's a lot of other options. Obviously, Helena is a good one. If you want to use with Eclipse, you can have a good opening, right? Helena plus Eclipse, I believe that's going to be 5 cost. Early on, you start with 5 SP, right? But yeah, you can also use Samai, actually. Samai is also a pretty decent buffer. And just to show you guys, in Diamond 2, I'm not a super hardcore PvP player. I'm somewhere around Diamond rank. But usually this is, based on my experience, is more than enough, right? I do have an Eclipse +5 though, keep that in mind. My gears are pretty decent as well, alright? So that's something to consider. If you are pulling Helena solely for PvP, hey, all the more power to you, right? If you are willing to go for that, that is also an option. But it's just more for PvE content, which I don't think you are going to use her as much as people seem to make it. If that makes sense, right? That doesn't mean that she's bad though. I still think she's a very solid character, and if you run magical teams solely, she should be able to carry you a ton. But it's just that how the meta has shifted towards where a mono element makes more sense, alright? You want to run a mono element team, so instead of physical or magical, you just want to focus on fire, wind, light, dark, etc. So therefore, because Diana gives you way more in terms of fighting against boss, because her default costume is already very good, and if you get this other costume right here, you will be able to complement the survivability when you're tackling against bosses in general. So Diana overall is just a very good character because this costume is going to give you the ability to have energy guard, right? That means you can survive the boss AoE damage sometimes, alright, with the energy guard. This scales off 500% of the caster's magic attack. So not too bad. If you don't have Red Riding Hood Rao, this could also be an option for a lot of players, right? So try to complement both the Diana costumes together. So I do think that the anti-dystopia Diana is probably going to be a better pick in the long run, right? So whereas I think Helena, she could be good right now for the current boss because both Eclipse and Celia recently are also dark type and you are able to buff them. But I'm not sure if you'll still be using her afterwards. Like, I'll be honest, I've stopped using her for a while. So that's just my honest take regarding this. Again, this is just my opinion. Maybe you'll still use her at the end of the day. Let me know what you guys think overall of this entire Helena versus Diana. Which one do you guys think is better for you? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, subscribe if you guys haven't already, give this video a like, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a nice day. Goodbye.